The process of liquidation in the UK explained. Okay, now 2,598 companies went bust in March 2024. That is nearly up 20% from last year. There are more insolvencies happening right now and they're affecting mainly small businesses. So if you're struggling to pay HMRC, bounce back loans, C-bills, suppliers, credit cards and other loans, I want you to understand this process, so please keep watching the video until the end. Now, it's Chris Worden, Director first. In today's video, I'm going to explain the following. And I've got some notes because it quite be an interesting and detailed video. I'm going to tell you exactly what it means to be insolvent. I'm going to also tell you what liquidation is. How does the process work? What does it mean for you, the director? How much does it all cost? And most importantly, what things do you need to be careful of if you're going to place your business into liquidation? Okay, first thing, an introduction to liquidation. I'm going to define insolvency for you, because people go, I don't know whether I'm going to go insolvent or not. And really the question you need to ask is your business insolvent? And there's a thing called the corporate insolvency test, and it's dead simple. There's 3 questions that you've got to ask, and they'll define whether or not your business is or isn't insolvent. Now, the first question is something called the cash flow test. And quite simply, it means, can you pay your debts as and when they fall due? So, are you paying HMRC on time? Yes or no? If you're on a time to pay arrangement at the moment, you can't. It's highly likely, by that definition, the business is insolvent. The second test that we do is something called the balance sheet test. And the balance sheet test looks at the liabilities of the business and the assets. And if the liabilities of your business, all your bills totaled up, everything that you owe, is more than the assets, your business is insolvent. And the third thing we look at is something called the legal action test. Now, if somebody has taken a CCJ against you and it's been served and it's registered, you're insolvent. If a stat demand's been served, you're insolvent. And God forbid a winding up petition has landed on your desk, you're clearly insolvent. So if any of those things apply to you, it's a sign that your business is insolvent, okay? Now, once you've realised that the business is insolvent, you speak to somebody like me about insolvency options. The sooner you take advice, the better. But there's a number of reasons why a business might be insolvent. You know, it's not because you're a criminal, most of the time anyway. It's probably because there's been a change in market conditions. You know, we had COVID. Then we've had the cost of living crisis. Now we're in a bloody recession. It's really hard there for businesses. Directors might just have had enough. They haven't got the appetite to do it again. There's a lot of reasons why a business can become insolvent. And then once they become insolvent and they go into liquidation, there's a number of ways that a business can end up in liquidation. There's a thing called a compulsory liquidation, and I don't advise you do this, but if you just don't do anything, your business is getting all this creditor pressure, HMRC are writing to you, bailiffs are coming out. Eventually, one of them will serve something called a winding up petition on your company. And it's the very last step on the train line of debt collection. And when a winding up petition comes, what that means is it will get advertised, your creditors will be made aware of it, your bank account will be frozen, you'll get a court date about 6 weeks ahead of that. And if you can't pay all the debts, when they fall due at the court date, the company is wound up by the courts compulsory. And instead of a liquidator of your choosing doing the job for you, you get the official receiver looking at it. And the consequences are almost always more severe. Compare that to a voluntary liquidation, where you go out there and you find an insolvency practitioner that you want to use to close your company down. It's quite a strange dynamic, insolvency. So people don't realise this, but an insolvency practitioner is duty bound to act on the best interest of creditors, okay? So they're there really to represent the people that you owe money to. But you've got to go out and find one to represent the other side. Listen, if I need a solicitor, I go for a solicitor who's going to represent me. But insolvency, that's different. They're going out to find somebody out there, somebody to represent the other side. That's why we're quite handy. Director first, we put you, the director, first. We only work with licensed insolvency practitioners. They're all really good people, but our job is to get you the best outcome in a really tough situation. So that's the difference. You know, you've got voluntary liquidation and compulsory liquidation. Now, let me give you some examples, okay? You're starting to struggle. Despite your best efforts, there seems to be no way out. You've got HMR series, supplier debts, sales have slowed down, people aren't paying on time, staff want more money, you can't recruit the right staff, there's too much month at the end of your money. So what you will normally do is you will go out there and you will search for a liquidator, okay? And you may search online. You may see a funny looking bold chap with specs on TikTok, Instagram, YouTube or Facebook. Your accountant might introduce you to one. Your friend down the pub might know one. So the first thing is you find somebody. Now let me tell you, don't just jump into bed with anyone. There's a lot of wolves dressed in sheep's clothing in this industry. Please, please take my word for it. You've got to do due diligence. There are some really good firms out there. We're one of them, but there are others. But make sure before you make a decision on calling somebody, you've checked out reviews on Trustpilot. Do they do a lot of free content that actually helps you understand your questions? And do you know what? I'm going to go on to this. You know, Trustpilot, look at reviews of customers who've been through the process. Because I do keep an eye on what my competition do, you know. And I see a lot of them where their reviews on Trustpilot are, yeah, Mr. X was great, service was very helpful, didn't want any money off me. And the reviews are like a sentence or two long. If you've been through an insolvency process, that's not your review. Your review's detailed. It's like, yeah, they helped me through this. They held me hand through the process. Chris was always on hand to speak to me. So when you're looking at a Trustpilot review, they're not equal, right? You've got to dig into the reviews. Have they got people who've just ever done one review, and they're all 2-sentence reviews? I'm not convinced that they're good Trustpilot reviews. You want the detailed ones that really explain how the company helped. So, once you've done all that, you make an inquiry. I'll tell you the process with me, because that's all I can really comment on. You make an inquiry with me. And what we do is we get on the phone and we talk about your situation. And you'll probably speak to my brother first, or you might speak to Emily, and they'll take a list of all the debts, they'll go through the assets. What are you worried about? What's the outcome that you look at? And then I'll get on the phone with you and we'll go, right, okay, this is where you want to end up. These are the problems you're going to face. This is dead important, this. Anyone who tells you, don't worry, it's all going to be fine, you know, they're just rushing you through the process, that's a red flag, that. Got to slow down. We've got to look at, are there any potential pitfalls for you as a result of doing this? And that's where we're a bit different at Director First. We put you, the director, first, just like the sign says. And we'll understand your situation before we give advice. We might need more information from you. We might need to see a balance sheet, profit and loss, last set of accounts. You know, if you're factoring, we might need to have a look at the ledger. We might have a look at what assets you've got on finance. Because depending on what your outcome is, will depend on what advice we give you. If you just want to just shut the door and it's a straightforward liquidation, you just want to appoint someone. I'll give you an example. We had a company last week, they've been going 30 years, fantastic people. They just had enough. They literally just had enough. There was some assets that need realising, there's some money that needs collecting in, but they wanted to drop the keys off and get on with their life. So that job is a lot different to another job that's like a basic wrap up. A job I've got on at the moment, really big firm, quite a lot of staff. They've got quite a lot of contracts that need novating. They want to start again. They've got a new vehicle to put the business into, and it's going to be an administration. So we need to put the business into admin. They're going to need to get an agent to value the business. They've got some factoring with a bank, so we're going to need to go in, look at their factoring agreements, perhaps get them a better factoring deal in the new co, get the assets valued, get it all transferred, get the marketing period started and finished. There's a lot more different type of work goes in that job than that job. Now, each of them, we've got to slow down and find out what's important to you and look for any problems. Now, then what's going to happen is we're going to give a detailed proposal on what we suggest that you do. It's going to outline all costs. It's going to outline any problems. It's going to outline how you're going to pay for stuff, what you're going to pay and how long you're going to pay it over. It's going to be detailed and comprehensive, okay? And then if you're happy with that, we're going to ask you to sign an engagement letter. And we've got to collect a load of bump off you. We've got to get things like, I'm going to tell you what a typical liquidator is going to want off you before they get you into liquidation. And I've done a note. They're going to want a brief case background history. What did you do? How was the problems created? How was the company initially formed? When did you start trading? Details of any major contracts, the list of employees, explaining the growth and decline of the company. When did you first experience problems? What were the nature of the problems and reasons for the company's downfall? Then we're going to need things like reference numbers for the PAYE, corporation tax, VAT. We're then going to need names and addresses of all your creditors and estimated amounts that they're owed, because we're going to have to write to them soon to tell them that you're going into liquidation. What we're also going to need to know is what are the company's assets? Do you have an inventory of the company's assets and what's happening with those assets? Are you buying them back? Are they being sold? Are you wanting the liquidator to sell them? We're going to need the name of the landlord if you're going to stay in if you're not going to stay in the premises. We're also going to need to know things employee details, holidays owed, holidays taken, company pension schemes, bank details, name, address, sort code, some bank statements are going to be helpful. We're also going to need a recent utility bill off you and some ID to pass, anti-money laundering regulations. We're also going to need to know, company books and records. So a login to Xero or QuickBooks is going to be helpful, and a copy of your last 3 years' accounts. Once all that's collected, and I know it sounds overwhelming, but you'll have all that stuff. Once it's all collected, we're going to send you your notices. And this is like the start of the official liquidation process. And you sign your notices, you send them us back, and we will write to the creditors of your business to inform them of the creditors meeting. Now, the creditors meeting is 21 days in the So let's say you sign your notices today, and today's date is bear with me, let's get my calendar up. Today's date is the 5th. Your creditors meeting should be around the 26th of March 2024. Now, what happens at a creditors meeting, mate, is a creditors meeting, since COVID, they're a bit more easy to do. They're done on the phone in most cases. So you just dial into a call, and it's where your creditors can ask questions about the company failure. Now, if you owe HMRC, if you owe a bounce back loan, if you owe some supplier debts, and let's say they're less than 100, 200 grand, they won't turn up to the creditors meeting. As crazy as that sounds to you, very rarely do we get attendance at a creditors meeting, okay? It's literally on the day of the creditors meeting, most of the time you don't even need to dial into the call. If one of your creditors is going to attend, we will know they're going to attend because they'll ask for attendance and we'll let you know, okay? And at the creditors meeting, the insolvency practitioner is formally appointed and your role as a director is over. You are no longer involved in the company, right? And from that point, the company is in liquidation. So from that point, creditors shouldn't be chasing you. They need to be directing everything to the insolvency practitioner. But that's really when the insolvency practitioner's job starts. And this is what the insolvency practitioner is going to do. They're going to conduct an investigation into the company, into the director, and if there's any assets, they're going to try and sell those assets to realise some funds for creditors. Now, a couple of weeks after going into liquidation, you're going to get a director's questionnaire. Your director's questionnaire has a long list of questions. Some of them won't even be applicable to you, that you'll fill in and send back to the insolvency practitioner. We help you with anything that you're unsure of. The insolvency practitioner will then file a report to the insolvency service, and then over the next sort of generally 12 months, on month 3, 6, 9 and 12, they'll send out reports to creditors to let them know how they're getting on. And if there's any money that's been raised from the sale of assets, it gets distributed to creditors, okay? Now, what I'm going to do, I'm going to talk to you a little bit about the priority of creditors. So let's say the business has got some cash at the bank, it's owed some money in, and it's got some plant and machinery to sell, right? The insolvency practitioner's job is to try and sell that by an auction, or they sell it back to the director, and then they have a list of creditors that need paying. But creditors have priority, okay? Not all creditor is treated the same. So the first person that's paid is anybody with a fixed charge. Charge holders get paid first. The second person to get paid is the insolvency practitioner. They're paid their fees and their expenses. After that, we've got preferred creditors, and HMRC are now a pref creditor. So they get paid next, okay? Then after that, and it's highly likely in most liquidations, that's where people stop getting paid. There's generally, especially on small liquidations, an unsecured creditor who's next doesn't generally get a lot, if anything at all, sadly. Underneath that is connected unsecured creditors, directors, shareholders who've pumped money into the company. And in an insolvency, it's highly likely they don't get anything back. Just gonna have a little bit of water. So, next thing I want to talk about is things for you to be careful of. This is very, 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 very important. If you're a director who's going into liquidation, a lot of people are focusing on cost. What does it cost to liquidate? That is not the question you want to be asking. Just so you know, the cost to liquidate a small company in the UK, I don't know, with a handful of creditors, a little bit of assets, some staff redundancies, you're going to be charged 4 or 5 grand plus VAT, maybe 6 or 7 depending where you are. But that's not everything. That's just the cost to get the business into liquidation. The things that you need to be careful of before you place the business into liquidation is these things. Have you got an overdrawn director's loan account? And if you have got an overdrawn director's loan account, you're not alone. I'll tell you how an overdrawn loan account works. Every time, there's like a ledger in your business. Every time a director puts money into the business, it goes as a credit. Every time it takes money out of the business that's not salary through the payroll, it goes as a debit. And once a year, your accountant will do your accounts, and if there's profits there, they will declare a profit, they will declare a dividend out of the profits of the company. If you've taken too much money out of the company, you'll end up with an overdrawn director's loan account. Now, if you're continuing to trade, you get taxed through the nose at S455 tax that goes on your corporation tax. But the big problem is if you go into liquidation. Because any overdrawn director's loan account that you have, when you go into liquidation, you're going to be asked to pay it back. Now, lots of directors don't even know about this. A, they don't know if they've got a director's loan account or not. And most insolvency practitioners don't bloody mention it. We're a little bit different here. Remember, we put you, the director, first. So what we will do for you is help you understand, have you got an overdrawn director's loan account? If you've got it, what we're going to do about it and how you're going to deal with it. Because an insolvency practitioner has the discretion to get a deal done. I'm going to give you a few examples. I've got a guy at the moment who he's got quite a well-paid job. His director's loan account's about £65,000, but he has no realisable assets. So what he's done, he's paying £4,000 plus VAT to go into liquidation, and we've gone through his assets and we've gone through his incomings and outgoings, and he's able to pay £750 per month for 12 months on his director's loan account. So it's not totally been written off, but he's getting away with probably £50,000 of it is being written off, okay? I had another lady the other day, she's on universal credit. Her business has failed, she's got no money, she owes 30 grand. It's been written off. No one's going to chase her for the money, it's been written off by the insolvency practitioner. I've got another guy at the moment, he owes about £150,000, he has a lot of assets, a lot of equity in his home. He's like, his house is like got £1 million worth of equity in. He's going to be paying the vast majority of that 150 grand back, but he's going to be paying it over 18 months. So there's the difference, yeah? The key thing is though, you've got a better chance of getting a deal done before you appoint the liquidator, or a better deal for you than you have once they're in the seat, okay? So remember, it's really important you figure out your overdrawn loan account position. Another thing that's going to bite someone on the arse is a preference payment. Once you become insolvent, you've got to be careful who you pay. Everybody's got to be treated equally. And what happens is directors, let's say you've got a director's loan, you're running out of money in the bank, and you decide to take your director's loan back, and you don't pay HMRC, you don't pay suppliers, you don't pay the banks. That's a preference payment. You've paid you over everybody else, and an insolvency practitioner is going to look at that, and they're going to try and recover that money from you, okay? It happens all the time. It's the same like, let's say you're going insolvent and you've got a personally guaranteed loan with one of these lenders, and you pay the personally guaranteed loan off, and it's clear that's what you've done at the end. Well, the insolvency practitioner is going to see that as a preference payment. They're going to set aside that payment, and they're going to come to you personally for it. Another thing that you can have problems with is selling assets under value. It's called a transaction under value. And I'll go back to the explanation of a builder we did recently. He's got some vehicles, he's got some plant and machinery, and he's got some money that's owed in. It's called a debtor's ledger. And what he decided to do was he just wanted to go into liquidation. He didn't declare any of this, despite us asking him about it. And then when he's in liquidation, we're going, well, what's all this here? He says, well, I've sold my vans and I've sold my plant and machinery to me brother's company. Well, what's the valuation? And he'd sold it much less than what it should have been. And we've had to take action against him. We've had to take action against him for that shortfall. If you're going to sell assets, you're entitled to sell your assets of your business at any stage, but please get an agent to value your assets. We can help and introduce you to an agent who can do this for you, but please don't willy-nilly be selling assets for much less than what they are worth. So that's the liquidation process. The time to liquidate, to get you into liquidation, is going to take a couple of weeks. The time between liquidation and dissolving the company can be 12 months, can be 18 months in some cases. But it all starts with you making a decision today to start dealing with your problems. I hope you found the video useful. My name's Chris Worden, Director First. Thanks for your time. God bless.